This is Harlem, a place almost everybody has heard of, but where most outsiders have never been. Every urban problem that plagues this country is represented here, and you can find it all within a few blocks of this rooftop. Broken families, rampant street crime, the worst housing this side of Calcutta, alcoholism, street gangs, and the worst plague of all, drug addiction. At first, this segment was intended simply as an investigation of the heroin epidemic. The poppies are growing again in Turkey, and I wanted to see if the Turkish main line had been reconnected. But Harlem, even the pits of Harlem, is a story so much larger than just...
doing whatever I had to do to survive. I'm not saying what I did was all right. Trying to break out of the ghetto was a day-to-day fight.
Biggest drug dealer in New York.
Being down so low, getting up lost for mine. I knew there was a better way of life, and I was just trying to find.
I guess I was best describing you. It was while Barnes was in prison that he suspected that the two main women in his life were sleeping.
The 369th were kept out of American uniforms during the first days of the First World War. The U.S. Army was then for whites only. Harlem soldiers went overseas, though, and fought under the flag of France. The French were glad to have them. They helped make the world safe for democracy and came home a highly decorated American regiment.
When I left the South in 1901, I was about 18 years old. Came to New York. I've been here ever since. But I did a little of everything when I first come here. Elevator, cook, shine shoe, or anything, and then fight like hell to save my life.
Colonel Hayward opened up his recruiting station in a cigar store in Harlem, at the corner of 131st Street and 7th Avenue. No armory had been provided, so the new 15th Infantry would drill in the old Lafayette dance hall up the street. Recruiting was slow. But then the colonel had a stroke of luck. The most famous composer and band leader of the day joined the regiment. James Reese Europe, musical director for the dance team of Vernon and Irene Castle, who gave Europe much of the credit for their popularity. A highly disciplined composer and conductor, Jim Europe organized one of the first black musicians' unions in the country. The founder of the Clef Club Symphony Orchestra became Colonel Hayward's biggest drawing card. Other talented musicians joined the regiment, the most popular of whom was Noble Sissle. Another friend of Jim Europe, and one of the first to lend support to the new regiment, was Ziegfeld Follies star Bert Williams. Williams, a captain in the California National Guard, worked closely with Hayward in the early days of recruiting. At Camp Whitman, New York, in July, the 15th Regiment was called to active duty and attached to the 27th Division, New York National Guard. A month later, they received orders to proceed to Camp Wadsworth, Spartanburg, South Carolina, along with the other regiments of the 27th Division. Spartanburg's mayor and the Chamber of Commerce announced, "It is a great mistake to send northern Negroes down here. We would not mind if they sent us a regiment of southern Negroes. We understand them, and they understand us. But with these northern fellows, it is different." Despite the official protest, the 15th arrived in Spartanburg for combat training.
We were down with the entire 27th Division. We weren't down there no more than 2 hours when trouble started with the crackers down south. If anybody here's a cracker, I'm begging their pardon, but we went into a little conflict down there, and to keep peace, Haywood pulled some strings and pulled us out of South Carolina and brought us to New York. One to Camp Mills, one battalion to Van Cortlandt Park, one battalion to 68th Street Armory, where the 27th Division still stayed there. So while being restless, the battalion in Camp Mills under Captain Fish, right to the next camp was an Alabama regiment geared to go overseas. Weren't there 24 hours before we started another racial war.
We were all preparing to go abroad, and we had no arm. We had our rifles, we had no munitions. And we were told that the Alabama regiment was to attack us that night. The feeling was very bitter, and luckily, or not now, but the joining 42nd, I think is the New York Regiment, gave us some ammunition, and so we just anticipated the war was going to begin right in America, because we told our soldiers that if they're attacked, they were to fight back, and if they were fired down, they were to fire back. And it looked as if it was going to be a sort of a bloody massacre that night. But fortunately, at the last moment, when they found that we were armed and that would mean bloodshed all down the line, we were able to persuade the Alabama regiment that it wouldn't be worthwhile attacking.
On December 26, 1917, Colonel Haywood wrote in his log, "Landed at Brest. Writes."
And believe you me when I tell you, that was the toughest time of the whole war. That was tougher than all of the bullets and all of the fight and all of the cooties and all of the hunger. Because we got in Brest, and we got in boxcars and rode all night. And it was so cold, and it was 40 in a car. 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And believe me, it was something.
Even harder to take was the hostile reception they got from some United States Marines.
The first day in St. Nazaire, that night they shot one of our men. We retaliated. Every time we went and found our man dead, we found their man dead. The battle got so hot between the Marines and us in St. Nazaire. They said, get them out of there, get them to hell to the front, and let them fight, because they're bloodthirsty. The Marines was tough for it. I mean, they were tough bunch of boys.
And we got into a camp, and we stayed there about a month and a half. And we found some other black soldiers there. But they were not fighting troops, they were stevedore regiments. The only black soldiers there were stevedores. But we were a fighting troop, according to our colonel. So if a guy's marching and his gun was a little crooked, the guy next to him kicked him so straight in the goddamn knife. You know we're on supply, you know. They had pride in the company. We're the only individual regiment from any state in the old 48 states at that time ever left the shores to fight in a war under the state flag. And that's a violation of something, brother.
Colonel Haywood returned from General Headquarters with a proposal for his men.
They want to be stevedoers, or want to fight with the French. We said fight with the French. We didn't come here to be stevedoers. The hell with the stevedore. Every man's voice went up in that barracks, that 9-1 voice. Okay, we said, well, you're going to fight, you'll fight. That's what he told us. So we fought with the French.
And we turned in all of our American equipment. That was our canteens, our rifles, our army belts, and our helmets. We issued French helmets, French rifles, French ammunition, French canteens, and instead of water in the canteen, we issued French wine. And we joined the 4th French Army.
Ironically, it was from the French that the men of the 15th learned for the first time their new federal designation. They were now the 369th U.S. Infantry Regiment. By the end of May, the regiment was under fire in advanced positions. A major German offensive was expected at the end of May, but the attack didn't take place until July 14th. Exactly at midnight on Bastille Day, the German guns opened fire, and the Battle of Champagne-Marne began. By 2:30 p.m. on the 15th, the word was passed down. All along the line, the 4th French Army had held. A letter arrived from General Gouraud. It is a hard blow for the enemy. It is a beautiful day for France. The young men from Harlem and Brooklyn fought side by side with the French African troops, the Senegalese, and the French 2nd Moroccan Division.
Well, the Moroccans were very good fighters and brave fighters, except one thing. Now, I might be questioning on this, and I don't care. It's from what I seen and what I heard. They could not stand the shell fire, the loud explosion of the big guns. They figured it was something from the heavens. But for fighting, they used to go over the top with their rifles slung over their backs, you know, with their knives in their hands. They were game, and they wouldn't take no prisoners. They wouldn't take no prisoners. Now, I can say this without fair contradiction. I might be wrong in the amount, but it's something like 200 or 500 francs the French government paid every Moroccan who brought in a prisoner alive. I could have brought in 1,000, I wouldn't get a quarter. But they didn't bring in any prisoners, they killed them. They cut their ears off and strung them on a string, tied them around their waist. That was it for the Moroccans. They shaved without lather. What more can I say about the Moroccans? And there was no racial prejudice. They were all colors and all shades. They were black with kinky hair, they were white with blonde hair, but they're all Moroccans. Our boys was pretty good with their knives, too. Henry Johnson and Needham Roberts. Two boys in the platoon commanded by Lieutenant Pratt. They were holding out a certain section up in the Argonne, And it seems that we always had listening posts, you see? Now, I'll explain if you don't know what a listening post was in that type of warfare. This was nothing like the Korean or Vietnam. See, when the troops are holding a trench, very little activity, every night they had a post set maybe 200 or 300 feet from the main body in the trench. And every night they put 2 men out there just to listen and warn if there was going to be a sneak attack. But of course, the Germans on that were doing the same thing. So this particular night, Henry Johnson, who was one of the greatest heroes, even greater than Sergeant York, which everybody knows of, were out there when these Germans attacked the listening post. Now, approximately 24 Germans attacked. Needham Roberts got slugged almost immediately, and Johnson fought them off. He shot and he cut and he swung his life around and he defeated the 24 Germans. Those that didn't wound or kill, cut out. He had 21 wounds in his body, but he refused to die. And it took Johnson and Roberts, we finally got out there in the morning and dragged their bodies back. They weren't dead, and both lived through it. Sorry to say today they're both gone. Well, I'm sorry to say today I can say almost anything because most all of them are gone. I'm 75 years old and I was only 17 then. So it ain't many guys that were 25 or 30 is here to contradict what I'm telling you.
By the end of the summer, the other regiments of the 93rd Division, the 370th, 371st, and 372nd, men from Connecticut, District of Columbia, Illinois, Massachusetts, Ohio, Maryland, Tennessee, and South Carolina. From Connecticut, District of Columbia, Illinois, Massachusetts, Ohio, Maryland, Tennessee, and South Carolina. But the 93rd was never to fight as a division. The 3 new regiments, like the 369th, were attached to French divisions. In September 1918, all moved into position for the major Allied offensive, the Battle of Meuse-Argonne.
But when we started up the hill that day in Argonne Forest, it was hell of a pair loose. Company AM over here, the French Blue Devil on this side. And Company C, we're going up the hill, then a yell, and that yell was a signal. When we started the hill, most of our men got it from here down.
The final War Department report. The casualties of the 4 black infantry regiments of the 93rd Division, 3,925 killed and wounded.
The most wonderful day of my life, the day we marched up Fifth Avenue. The first outfit to march onto that Victory Arch down there was on 23rd Street, 22nd Street. That's one day that it wasn't the slightest bit of prejudice in New York City. That day, and tell you what day it was? February 1919. Let me see, it must have been February the 21st. Because we came back to Camp Upton where we were all discharged on the 22nd day of February, Washington. Avenue, everybody was astounded because we used a new mass formation, 16 abreast. And we've never seen before in this country. It was a formation we learned in France from the French instructors. And it was quite a sight.